I'd like to welcome you all here this afternoon. Thank you for attending today's session on EstimatorXpress, session 1 of 4. In today's session, we are going to be looking at the price book within the software, managing the price book, and various other tools to allow us to kind of make sure that everything we do further on within the software is accurate. So the first thing we're going to have a little do is a tour of the software. Now, these sessions are designed from the perspective of users starting from the ground up. Just got the software, just started for the first time, just joined a company, and they're using the software, so they've been put on one of these sessions to kind of bring themselves up to speed. So we're going to have a little look through and just see what the various buttons are on the front page as well. One thing you note as well is that my screen is a little bit darker than everyone else's. I sit in front of this quite a lot during the day, so I've used the settings for, say, theme to make it a bit darker, much easier on the eye as well. So the first section we're going to look at is the tabs for the ribbon. Now, whenever I refer to the ribbon in any of our packages, it will always be this section along the top. Hopefully you can see my mouse moving. If not, I'll click some of the tabs so you can see the changes occurring. So whenever we refer to the ribbon, that is the area I'm looking at, and the tabs for the ribbon will be referring to these buttons up here. Now, when we start the software, you're going to be dumped straight onto the dashboard screen with the dashboard tab open. That takes you straight to the create a job button at the top there. You also got that there on the main dashboard screen as well. You'll have create new group of jobs if you have that option within software. The settings tab is nice and straightforward. You've got your EstimatorXpress options. So if you ever refer to that for any support reason, or you want to customize things a little bit more, you can go to the settings tab, click EstimatorXpress options, and in here you'll find various options for changing the default VAT. If you're handing your updates, turn off certain things. If you've got a very new Intel laptop, that's a very useful button. And it allows you to kind of adjust things such as your registered user. So if your address changes, or you change your company name slightly, or you want to change, say, phone number, email address, you can come to there and change those quite easily. As mentioned, software theme, so you can give yourself a different hue to look at there, or high contrast, depending on your vision. And then some more advanced options we're not going to go into, such as default worksheet names and locations and network settings. That's more for enterprise users who are in a large office and might have proxies and firewalls that I need to deal with. And then finally, a help tab. Now, the help will take you to help on the web, which takes you through to our support site. A link direct through to the help videos section of that. The contact HBXL for assistance, so basically the technical support number or sales number, and the About EstimatorXpress, which is particularly useful because it will tell you not only your license code, it'll tell you your user ID, when your support and license expiries are, and in case of, say, an emergency, you need to find some information about things like the logs or where your user data is kept, there's a link to that in there as well. Also about your merchants. Going back to the dashboard there, I'm going to cover what's on the left-hand side here as well now. So the main button that gets you back to this location is the dashboard, okay? And that there can be expanded, and you can see the job section, which will let you see your list of jobs that you'll be working on or have been working on, along as well as important information such as where that file is saved once you've hit save. Because if you move a estimate from the location the software thinks it's in, you'll have to either put it back or use the import button to tell the software its new home. Groups of jobs, which allows you to take several estimates and put them together under one header, and then the library section as well. Now, the library section is where all the default settings for the software pretty much lives for stuff that you want to be keeping track of within the software. So this would be your price book, which can be expanded out to materials, labor, plant, subcontract, and sundry. You'll have your specifications, which, depending on the version you've got, see I've got 7 here. Yep, I can count. Yep. Your favorite merchant. So if you've got a merchant link, you can specify the merchant being used in there, your default overhead and profit. And also look at the estimating calculators in the software as well. The first thing we're going to do in here is we're going to edit some of the defaults for the price book. Now, the first section that's always recommended to take a look at for anyone getting their hands on the software is going to be the labor section. It's one area that will have the most variation. You can have 2 builders living on the same street that'll have different rates and gangs at different rates again as well. So what I'd like you to do is, if you go to the library section, you can click on library, and you can either use the open button next to labor here, or you can expand it out and go to the labor section there. Once we are in the labor section, it's one of the smaller sections because there's only so many different types of labor or generals you can have. You'll see that on the left-hand side, we have a description column describing the different gangs and their sizes. We have a list price, which is the price that we will give them, and discount, adjustment, purchase price, unit supply, and merchant, and so forth. Now, the main other one here is type and last date modified. The reason I look at these is that the list price, because it's not a linked price, we don't track these, will change as you adjust the purchase price. And it's this column here that we're going to be changing. The type, say, just groups them together. So when you're looking at bricklayer costs, you see all of them would be grouped together in a quote, let's say. But the other important one is your last modified date, because that will be showing you basically when you last adjusted that price. So if it's a year out of date, but your prices aren't changed in a year, you're fine. If it's a year out of date, but you adjusted your labor prices 6 months ago, you might want to pull your finger out and give that a rejig. So to change prices in this section, what we're going to do is we're going to go to the editing tools button up here in the ribbon. It should automatically be in the price book tab, and clicking editing tools. And what we can do then is click edit prices. This will open up the price column. You'll be able to see when a column is available to be edited, as you will be able to see the slight change to the column format. It's now input boxes. You can click in there and you'll see your cursor flashing to be able to change the text. And one of the first things we're going to do is we're going to have a little look at the bricklayer's rate. Now, I'm just going to pull figures out of the air for this, just so we can see the effects coming through. But I'm going to change my bricklayer to £30 an hour. Now, it's always recommended that you start on the lowest version, or a lowest or smallest gang. So the single bricklayer, the single bricklayer's mate, then the combination of, and then the groups of those together. So that way then it just makes it easier. Changing one, as a note, because these are just input boxes, will not change the others. So you have to be wary that if you're changing the bricklayer price here, you may want to change the purchase cost for the 2 bricklayers and a mate. I'm going to leave the bricklayer's mate as 15. I'm going to go to the bricklayer and mate and change that to 45. Then I'm going to come up to the 2 bricklayers and a mate, and I'm going to change that to 75. Fingers crossed my maths is correct, and we've now got the correct price for 2 bricklayers and a mate. And then on the very rare occasion it does actually use 4 bricklayers and 2 mates, I'm just going to change that to 150. And doing so, next time I create a job, these are the prices that will be used whenever a bricklayer is used for any task, be it finishing off footings, the walling, fitting, flashing into the brick for, say, roof going up against it, for the soakers. Any kind of task like that, there will a brick layer be indicated for, say, structural openings. Those will be the values used. Now, when you exit this section, it'll ask you to save, but we can always save by clicking Save Edited Changes up here. Doing so, it'll ask you, do you want to save, if you've edited the price of web link resources, you can either stop them being updated or maintain yourself, or you can save as an adjustment and it'll keep tracking. Now, there's a moot point in the labor section because we don't track it, so we're just going to say yes anyway. And those prices are now adjusted. And so I can see now the difference, say the adjustments there for those items. We don't send out new labor rates. I think people would be very upset if we adjusted their labor rates without them being aware. So they will stay as they are. Okay, so that is the essence of adjusting the labor prices. You'll see that as we go down, we'll have lots of different types of labor, from plasterers, some management costs, roof tilers, sundry labourers, such specialists, and some, say, very general labourer ones such as this that allow you to kind of drop that in anywhere in a quote for a quick labour cost. Now, are there any questions about the labour section or adjusting the prices in there? And so there is a questions box that you can just pop any questions in, and we can cover them as we go along or save them to the end. Okay, so I've got no questions on the labour section. So the next section we're going to do is a little bit above that, and then we're going to go straight to the material section. Now, the material section is quite a hefty one. It's a big boy. It can contain, say, thousands upon thousands of resources, and scrolling through it can take a little while unless you've got a mouse like mine that cheats and you can just scroll and does it for you. But even then, you don't know where you're going to land. So what we want to do is learn how to filter. Now, the filters allow us to kind of bring the say the sections down to much more kind of manageable chunks. Now, there are a couple of filters that will be most useful in here. The first one being merchant, second one being type, and then also ones such as adjustment. Okay, I'll get as to why that's important in a moment. And finally, again, the last date modified, as that will then allow us to see when a resource was last changed. And if we've created one ourselves, it will be static at the point it was changed or last edited, unlike when that's done via price but download, which will be showing today's date. Now, mentioning price but download, I'm going to do one now, just so you can see it in action. So when we are in the material section of the library, we have download prices. One click, and it grabs everything it can. So you see that I've got my EstimatorXpress, say HPXL price tracker prices. Come down, then I've got my Crystal Direct, and then it just adjusts everything that it needs to and updates the resource pack information if there's anything relevant for that as well. So I have my last date modified now changed to the 11th of January 2022. Just a bit of trivia for you as well. The 22nd of February 2022 lands on a Tuesday. So it's going to be Tuesday. I've been waiting years for that. So now we've got our updated prices. We're going to filter this down to look at a particular section. Now, the first section I want to look at is blocks. So I'm going to come to the type header here, and as I hover over this header, I hope you're still paying attention after that really bad joke, you'll see that there's a little pin. And with that pin, we can left click that pin. Got to be quite accurate with it, as it can be quite small. And we will have a menu appear full of tick boxes, check boxes. And from here, we can then tick these sections we want to look at. So we've got aggregates, appliances, architectural stones and such, and I want to click blocks. Doing so, my section of materials my software is looking at is now considerably smaller. There we go. Now, one discrepancy I'm going to highlight for everyone here. Depending on the version of software you have, you may or may not have the each value items or the meter square items, because what we've got is the standard blocks in there as a meter square. So you give your meter square price for your blocks. But if you have the Smart Scheduler package, you'll also have the individual prices for the items as well. For the time being, we're just going to focus on the meter square, as that's the default one that everyone will have. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to look in this list. I'm going to go for a very generic solid dense concrete block, 7 newtons, 440 by 215 by 100 millimeter. We have in here a £12.40 list price with current adjustment and discount of 0, leaving us with £12.40 per meter square blocks. If you find yourself in a situation where you are paying less than that, which I've seen some people pay very cheap for their blocks, but get rinsed for their skips and the training days, or say even a situation where you might be more remote or supply chain's not so good for you and the block price is increased, we can adjust that to reflect your local circumstances, or you can change that to reflect your local circumstances. And if it's those kind of circumstances that are persistent, like location and such, or say the agreements you may have, then as our prices increase, then yours will increase, but based on that adjustment. The first thing we really want to do is find out what that adjustment is. So we can use the Editing Tools button in the ribbon and click Edit Prices to open up the column. And we can change our £12.40 to, we can say, £13.20. Okay, it's just a small increase. It's not going to be a wealth of difference across jobs, but it's, you're paying 80 pence more. Once I'm done with that, I can click Save Edited Changes, say yes, because I want to keep it tracked, and I'll see there that I have a 6.45% increase above our tracked price average. Now, a little bit of information on that tracked price average. That is the kind of average sell price for our builders across the country. That would be the averaged out what the list price they pay at the merchant, and then they kind of builder discount is included, and what it'll average out to, which means that for the vast majority of the time, they tend to be very, very close. We've got, like say, over 20 years of experience of dealing with that, tracking merchants, and our own estimating service, so we tend to have a lot of information flow through that we can accumulate and make use of. So now I have my adjustment. I just need to apply that to all the other blocks of that type. Now I can do this to the meter square blocks, and I can do this to the individual blocks as well for those with Smart Scheduler, all in one go. The trick for this is to use the Shift key. Now, if you've got Windows, say the vast majority you have, I deal with, standard Windows shortcut, if you hold Shift, now if you dealt with EstimatorXpress as well, same thing. As you hold Shift, if you select something, you can go on and select other things at the same time. And if you in a column click item A and then you click item D, you will have items B and C also clicked at the same time. It will grab everything in between. And we can do that here by holding Shift while we click solid dense concrete block, And I can go down to the last one in the list for that small group, and you'll see that the colors have changed. As I'm holding shift, I can let go of shift. I can then right click that group and go edit resource. And this will now let me type 6.45 in that percentage adjustment. I'm going to apply that. I'm not going to, well, I could just make sure VAT is at 20%. Once I'm happy with that, I can click OK. Now my adjustment has changed across all of those items. Now, would you like me to go through that again? If you'd like me to run through the kind of multi-select again, just say pop your hand up in the chat, or pop something into the question box. Okay, all good. So just one slight variation as well. Another Windows shortcut. Oh, yeah. Okay, I'll run through it again. Is the Control key allows you to pick different items. If you hold, it won't select everything in between. It just lets you pick out individual ones, such as. So again, I'm going to click on solid dense concrete block. I'm going to hold the shift key. And my poor shift key is getting worn out at this rate. I do this a lot. And then I'm going to click the last one in that kind of small group there of solid dense concrete blocks. Okay. And then I can release my shift key, which should be the over on the left hand side below caps lock. Very end one on the same row as Z, X, and C, very on the far left. Once I have done so, I can right click or click edit resource, or I can click edit resource in the ribbon. There's always a button in the ribbon. And it gives me the screen where I can change the adjustment for this group of items. So I've got adjustment, I've got delivery weeks, payment weeks, VAT, wastage, if I want to increase the wastage and everything. If you find that you want to have more than just 5% increase in ordering of the blocks to account for any damaged blocks or wastage generated on site, you can do. These are all applied. Once you've changed that adjustment within that box, bearing in mind there is a decimal point just there, you can click OK, and that adjustment is then applied. There we go. So I'm going to leave that as is now. And I'm going to move to the aggregate section. So in the type header again, I'm going to hover over. Now, if you've got a smaller screen, you may need to scroll along the bottom using the scroll bar just down there. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hover over the type section so the pin appears. I am going to left click the pin. I'm going to untick blocks, and I'm going to tick aggregate. So now we're in the aggregate section. We're just going to do the same thing again of adjusting some material prices. So it's knowledge through repetition. You're doing the same thing a couple of times just so you're comfortable with it. So with our, say, aggregate section now, we're going to go to editing tools, and we're going to go edit prices. And we're going to change our ballast bulk bag from, say, 40 to, let's say, 43. There we go. The cheat sheet I'm looking at makes me sad because it's like changing it from 30 to 35. So you can see the kind of increases that there have been over time. And that's like not even an old cheat sheet as well. So it shows the value of keeping your prices under a microscope. And so now we've done that, like say, ballast bolt bag, we can do the building sand bolt bag as well, which is also £40. I'm going to change that to 43. You can change it to whatever you like. As a reminder, it's your software. You're using it your end. You can put any figure you want in there, though it's advised you use one that you'd actually pay for. Because then, say, you're saving your work, this for later on, and it's saving yourself time later on having to set everything up, because you can kind of use this as a springboard for that. And finally, what is it? Any other bolt bags I was going to do? No, I think I'll just leave that there. Okay, and then I'm going to hit Save Edited Changes and say yes. So the bolt bags, I've got 7.5% adjustment on them. I can go through and I can put that to the standard bags as well. So again, you can choose which ones you want to do. You can just do individual ones, pick them out of the list so that they might be higher than everything else. Certain concrete products might be higher. Actually, the ordinary cement, blue circle cements, their prices can be higher than other items, just due to the fact that concrete products are still, I do believe, climbing in price. Timber is stabilized at the time of this, say, webinar and recording for anyone that's going to be watching this at a later date. But it might be something that locally, again, to you want to adjust. Now, before we go into kind of adding anything, I'm just going to take a quick little tour from the aggregate section into the bricks section. Now, bricks are their own special case. Adding products we're going to get to. Don't worry, that's going to be one of the sections coming up. So quick word on bricks. You're seeing here that everything pretty much, bar the kind of Class A and Class B, has a provisional allowance next to it. So it's not a case of editing these prices, because the name will then be an ill reflection of the purchase price. So if in this section, if you ever had to create a brick that was 78 pence, 75 or 80 pence ain't going to cut it for you. You had to have 78, or a brick that's much higher than the ones we've got in there. What you can do is just create a new resource, which is going to be the next section. Now, for that, I'm going to go into a different section. We're going to do the brick section, because it's not so easy to kind of show that on the fly in, say, the following sessions, to link, kind of trace it back to where we came from. So what I'd like you to do is go back to your type pin again, untick bricks, and take a goosey gander down to insulation and give that a click. Okay, so give everyone a second to come down to the insulation section. Now, the insulation section is, again, not a huge section. It's just basically like 2 pages of information on my screen on, I'd say, that's 1080 monitor. Also, as it's set for this. One thing you'll note in here is that we've got some more specialist installations that you may not have seen so far if you've used the software, looked at it, such as, say, the acoustic rock walls, say, compressed foundation boards, the large range of, say, phonetic insulation cavity wall boards. The one that is always fun to get people to say, especially when we're doing the live days, and that's the polyisocell UNA. You can try practicing it yourself right now at home or in the office, if no one's around, because if you don't say it often, it's going to catch you out. But for those that know, it's PIR. It's Celotex, it's Kingspan. It's just the small fact that when we have the price tracker, it is generic to a fault. So the material that everyone can say is quite easily identifiable, as like say everyone can say Kingspan or let's say Celotex or any other brands. That's the actual name of it. So if a customer raises what's polyisonuronate, you can say to them that it's just the generic name of Celotex and such. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to create a new resource in here. One of the main things I try and get across to people, either in here or on a phone call, or when you're going along with things, that it's far easier to create a resource if you're highlighting something. If I go new resource now, I got blank. There's nothing. I got to fill the description, customer friendly, plan specific, unit cost, discount, net purchase, merchant type, delivery weeks, payment weeks, merchant code, VAT, wastage, including increasing and not affecting order quantities and such. There you go, whole mouthful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cancel that, and I'm going to pick something similar. And at the top of that list, you've got acoustic rock wall installation. Saying it, I can smell it. That's a weird memory thing going on. Now I've highlighted that, I'm going to click new resource again. And this time, my add resource screen is populated. It's got pretty much most of the stuff in there that I want to have pre-filled in. What I'm going to do in this one, though, is I'm going to get rid of that copy. And I'm going to literally just change that to, say, sheep's, caps lock the wrong way around. Sheep's wall insulation. I'm going to put a W there. Okay. And I'm going to make that 6.2 meters square a roll. Now, the reason I've left that size description in there is that when you go to select a resource, when you're using it in an estimate, and it asks you, okay, right, you've selected this insulation roll. How big is it? It'll ask you what its usage factor is. And there's a little calculator that you can click on, and it'll say, I use one roll for, and you go, scratch your head, how big is this roll? So if you put the size for something like this, if it's normally the similar items got the size in there, you don't have to scratch your head. You go, oh, right, okay, I've selected sheep's wool and it covers 6.2. Okay, right, so I use one roll per 6.2 meters square. There you go. The software can do the rest of it. So it's just a handy bit of information to have within the description. I'm just going to highlight all that. So drag my mouse across. Control C, because that's nice and lazy. I actually might get rid of the sizing on the customer friendly. There is options when you do a quote to do customer friendly descriptions, which is basically saying instead of engineering class A brick so and so size and so this, it just says engineering brick. Yeah. Helps for customers that want to keep things simple, or you want to leave them with a quote that doesn't go into too much detail for other people to kind of rip off. The other major things in here I want to change is unit cost. Now, sheep's wool at the moment is probably going to be actually quite cheap. I'm going to change that down to £18.80 because farmers, unfortunately, struggle to sell sheep's wool at the moment. It's not exactly, flying off the shelves. But in this case, we're throwing them a bone. We're buying their sheep's wool as a form of insulation for a eco house, let's say, or something like that. It's been treated. It's lovely. It's renewable. But at the moment, let's say it's cheap. We can come back and adjust this if the price goes up. If like sheep become rare, we don't need to change the discount or adjustment because we are setting the price specifically at this point. The unit of purchase currently is each. It's each roll. Well, we could change that to be a roll. We've got a whole host of different units in here, so I can change that to roll if I want to per roll. I'm going to leave it as each. Then the merchant. Now, this is one I would advise to change as you're going along, because the merchant drop-down, we'll say filter drop-down, has provisional. And if we use the provisional, when we create an item, or add a merchant ourselves, but I like to keep it simple and go for provisional. Means that we can filter by merchant, look at all the provisional items under the provisional merchant, and we can see all the items we created. So it makes it much easier to kind of keep tabs of stuff you've created yourself. After that, installation type, that's fine. Delivery weeks, that's 2 weeks head start for ordering for this material. Payment weeks within 5 weeks of ordering. So those figures there impact the kind of cash flow and payment timelines and ordering timelines in the reports at the end of an estimate. So if you've got a phase, say the brickwork shell is going up and it's starting in the beginning of March, and part of that, the wall is having sheep's wool insulation in the wall, it could be timber frame or whatnot, you'll have a section within your reports, if you've done your build program, that will say mid-February you need to order the sheep's wool insulation to make sure it arrives on site on time. So that's what that bit of information refers to. Merchant code is just, that will get changed on the fly when we create it. That's just based on our internal one. Custom merchants, so say merchant that add in, will have their own codes that will be relevant to them. That's modified today. VAT rate 20%, wastage increasing order quantity 10%, and wastage not affecting order quantity 0. Now, those two wastage quantities play an important role. There used to be only one, and we used to be in software, it just genericized across everything. But the idea is now, with a much finer tooth comb to this, that every type of resource has its own wastage quantity. And in this case, it's increasing the order quantity. So if we are ordering 100 square meters of sheep's wool insulation, the software will order and request the actual physical presence of 110 meters of sheep's wool insulation and give you the cost for that in your quote, allowing for, say, wastage as you go along. And no, gust of wind, some of it might fly away. Well, you never know, the merchant could have fleeced you. So that will appear on any kind of material that is loose or is comprising of lots of different items. So bricks, blocks, tiles, sand and aggregates and such like that have a 30% wastage, because if you pour it onto a driveway, you're never going to get it over the trouble. Some of it's going to wash away, some of it's going to get left in the mixer, some of it's going to get left in the bucket and washed out, and most of it's going to get onto the trowel and fall off or get tamped off on the scaffold, much to the scaffolder's displeasure. So that's where your 30% goes, meaning that you've still got enough then to do the wall. The wastage not affecting order quantity is when you want to have a nominal figure adding onto something, but you're not going to need to order more than that one item. So that gets applied to whole items like doors, windows, white goods, boilers, anything like that, because it's very awkward to actually order 1.1 boilers, but you can order one boiler and have an extra 5 or 20 quid of extra cost going towards it, which can cover anything from damage to fixings, anything along those lines there. Across the whole job, if you've got a small nominal amount across all the whole items, then it will add towards the just like the pot of fixing things that go wrong. Yep, brickies put their foot through a window or something. The other thing with that as well is that those little nominal amounts, if you're not using the rounding tools, can just help you look at this when you order your order sheets, and it'll take you over whole items as well. So it puts you to the nearest whole item as well with some of the wastage as well. So if you know you need 100 meters square of something, but it only comes in 105 meters, then 110 meters will cover you. There. Once we're done and we're happy with that, we're going to click OK. I'm going to scroll to the bottom, and voila, sheep's wool insulation, 6.2 meters square, with a price in red. So at a glance, you can see it's a custom one. If it's in red, it's not tracked. Now, if you choose to untrack one of our prices by going edit prices and unticking it, it will also appear in red, which means that you can hit download prices to the end of the day and you're blue in the face, the price won't change because it's not tracked. So that is adding a material. Do we have any questions on adding a material like sheep's wool or anything like that? Because we're going to do it once more. If you've got any questions, like I say, just fire them over. No, we're good. Right. So what we're going to do, we're going to add another material that's an allowance product, like the bricks earlier on. Okay, something just a bit more bespoke. Because as example, you're going to do a job for someone, and the architect's either got carried away. If it's added to the top, that's fine, as long as it's in the price book. It could just be where you've got, like, say, alphabeticized or however it's filtered. Or you just dropped it at the bottom. So what I would like you to do is go to the type again, click on the little pin, and untick installation. Now you can actually tick the top section for tick all and then untick all. And we are going to go to ceramics, which is C, if my alphabet holds true. There we go, ceramics, etc. Okay, so I'm going to give you a moment now to navigate yourselves to the ceramics section. Okay, so now we are in the ceramics section. As you can see, it is an overwhelmingly large section that has many items in it. Now, the reason it doesn't really contain if you want to change something to alphabetical order, you can just click on the description column. But whenever you click in a column, it will change that section to be alphabetical for itself. Normally, it's alphabetical by type first and then description. So that's why when you look at the type, it's got the aggregates at the top and such. If you ever get lost or it's all gone all over the place, you can right click and just go reset layout on one of the column headers. Right click, reset layout. Okay. So one of the main reasons that we don't have huge amounts in here, because many times in the flooring or tiling, it may ask for a nominal meter square amount, or it's going to link to a item resource such as this floor tile with an allowance of £30 per meter square. I do believe that is the one we are going to pinch the details from as well. So if you've got this page up, locate your floor tiles, allowance £30 meter square, make sure it's highlighted, and then click new resource. Now, once you've got that new resource box up, and I get rid of that copy, I'm going to add in the front of this now, quarry. Spell it right, it'd be a good start. Now I'm just going to go say quarry because, like real stone floor tiles. I'm going to change that to, well, the preview page before now. This is 87, so going by current inflation, that's going to be about 3,000. I'm going to go in for 110 today. There we go, £110 per meter square. Now, this could be quarry, like I've done there. It could be Sicilian marble. It could be whatever the architect has specified or they've seen in the magazine and they so desperately want on their kitchen floor, their bathroom, because it's been in the latest episode of Grand Designs or whatever. But at least this way, you can put something in there with a price that you can then start working with as you go along. Now, I've changed the allowance price of 110, but I still need to change my unit price. Now that's 110. Not really much else to change apart from the, say, price tracker to provisional. So then we can locate it much easier later on. And because it's more of a specialist, we could, say, increase the delivery weeks to 4 weeks. We could have to order this a whole month in advance. We could order this 2 months in advance. If we go for that Sicilian marble, it might have to be shipped all the way from Sicily. This is, like I say, if you're adding something bespoke in, you've got a little bit of homework that you might have had to done for this resource before going in there. But the main thing is that the customer's going to be happy. They're going to see it in there, priced at what they, going to be shocked at, going, oh my god, I didn't realize it is that much. But it's got the name next to the thing of the thing they wanted. So, well, if you want that thing, that's how much it costs. It's in the quote. We could, of course, go to the local quarry and see what we can dig up there, where it won't be quite as nice. Well, actually, you never know. Delivery weeks, 4 weeks, payment weeks, 5, VAT 20%, wastage quantity could go up to 7, not 78%, 7%. Yeah, just a little bit more. If it's a rougher stone, again, your knowledge of the resource, what your opinion is, this is where it's coming in as well. If I was to do this with a slate and you said, well, slate, okay, reasonably low wastage, I might do 10%, at tops. If you said, oh, it's Spanish slate, I'd say, okay, 20% wastage. Argentinian slate, I'd say, that's going to be 30, 35% wastage. Chinese slate, I'll say 70% wastage off the bat. There we go. You might as well not order it. But so it's up to your knowledge of what your resource you're doing as well, your opinion to put in there. Once you're done, we can click OK. Boom. We have our allowance price in there. So when we go to use the calculator for floor tiles, if you do choose to do so in a future session, we have it there ready to swap to. We can swap from our floor tile to our quarry floor tiles, and we are ready to go. Now, another note as well, because there's many notes as we go along, like a musical. You're not limited to doing it in this section. You can do it in the job on the fly as you go along. So as you're working along and you're estimating and you read on the spec and you go, oh no, what's that? You can have a quick Google, grab your information about the resource and create it on the fly. You don't have to come out of this job. You don't have to come in here to do it. You can just hit a new resource button as and when you've got the option to, say, swap a resource. So whenever there's an option to change the resource, you'll see a new resource button. So you're never stuck. You're never in a pickle for that. So that generally is the material section. A couple of things to add on to this as well is some helpful golden rules to stick with. Try not to add materials that already exist. If there's a building stand bulk bag in there for 40 quid and you pay 45 or you pay 35, don't create a new resource for building stand bulk bag copy £35. Just change the price of whatever is in there that is the substitute thing. Because that material in there, the reason they're generic, like the polyisocyanic or just the sundry graded timber, is that they stand in for any and all merchants. You don't have to create a resource for a different merchant. You can just adjust the price to the merchant price that you're most likely to pay. If it's the more costly one, then at least you're covered. So try and avoid duplication of materials, because it just makes it easier just to adjust the existing price, because then it feeds all the way through the quote automatically, maybe with a refresh, instead of having to go through and change every instance to over to the new material, because that's just long-handed and a waste of your own time. So yeah, now we're done in this section. If you ever want to clear a filter, again, you can just untick the boxes there, or there we go, and it's done. Cleared the filter. You can generally see what filters are active in the bottom. When we're done with that, what we're going to do is we're going to click on the plant section. You're going to want to quick break a second to click on the plant. Rightio, so we are now in the plant section again. So plant section is a reasonable sized section of software, like say database and software. It contains a fairly large amount of what you're going to require during any build job. If there's certain things that you require that is not in there, again, you can use what we've done previously for creating a resource and just drop it in there on the fly. You know, if you are, Mr. Moneybags, and you can use a Chinook to drop in your marble slabs for their new spa going in the back garden, then you can add a Chinook into your price book if you so wish. So again, the kind of first things we're going to do in here is have a little look around just to see kind of like the sections that we've got. Now, I've currently got everything described by description at the moment. So I clicked on description as the kind of A to Z on this. So starting me off with a 30mm telehandler, then a 20-ton driver and tipper, 3-ton dumper. It makes no sense. You'll see over here type is currently your mix and match as well. So I'm going to click on type. And what this will do is put everything together by the kind of alphabetical order over here, which makes much more sense now. So we've got all our access equipment together, all our craneage, all excavators and light plant and such. If you give me 2 seconds, I just got to click a couple of buttons for someone. No, I've not done that yet, so that's fine. So as you'll see here, we've got, like, say, under the access equipment, we've got, like, say, cherry pickers, ladders, scaffold boards and such. Couple of items to pay attention to in here. Uno numero. Unit of supply. Is it supplied by a week or by a day? Vast majority of plant in here is supplied by the week. So you'll be renting your cherry picker for the week, scissor lifts for the week, telehandler and jib by the week. But then we get to something like the 25-ton mob telecrane, which is the day, and that's because it says and driver 8-hour day. So whenever you've got an item of plant that requires someone, say, to operate that plant, say someone with a specific license for it, or the fact that you just need to account for the fact you're employing someone to drive it while they're digging the hole, you'll see that the cost is the plant itself plus whatever the average labor rate is for whoever doing that. So again, this might be a case of having a look at your labor section, seeing what your ground worker rate is, and making sure that is whatever's on top of what your day rate for renting that plant out is, or if it's someone coming in that you're employing to come in with their own digger to do that for you. Also to note as well, it's also if you own your own plant, because it's what you're charging the customer for using your JCB or your Manitou or whatever. Okay, because you got to maintain it, you got to insure it, you got to fuel it. So even if you're not renting it, it's still something in to have to make sure that they are paying for the right for have you do the job properly. You're not employing gnomes to manhandle everything across the garden. So with that, again, it's just a straightforward case of recommending to just open the editing tools and go edit prices. A couple of other things in here to look at as well as I go down past the screed pumps, shovels, because there is just individual shovels, because it all just adds tiny little bits of value for bits and bobs here and there. It's got disc cutters because wear and tear. We start coming down to things like protection. There's a specific workbook for that. Safety equipment, site accommodation. So again, a little bit more relevant than it had been prior, because you are not always able to use customer toilets. Say if you're doing an extension, then whereas before you might be able to have access to the customer loo, if you're just doing their roof, now you got no such chance because of COVID. They might be self-isolating, there might be protections, who knows. But you've got to pay for a loo now, so you need to make sure that price is reflective of whatever your local hire is for a porta potty. Same again for site cabins, steel containers on site for storage of materials and tools. Then we get to our spoil removal, which is where I really do kind of highlight for people to come in here and have a good gander at that. Now, while you might not always be going for the 20-ton tippers or the grab lorries, builders doing larger jobs may have the grab lorries. Everyone is going to be wanting to look at the skips, and they can be all sorts. They can keep you when you least expect it for the cost of them. We've got 215 quid there for, say, 10-yarder, 8-yarders in there for 185. That just works out as a national average here in Bristol. I'll be looking at that and going, maybe 220, 230, just to do that. But we're not going to do Bristol prices because then everyone else will be going like, what's going on there? So it's worthwhile having a good look at that one. And finally, depending on what your locale is, if you've got a CAS zone or the like a London emissions charge, you'll see that there is a congestion charge in there as well for per day. So in Bristol, in the middle of the summer or roundabouts, they're planning on introducing that here, and that's going to be £9 a day for us. For anyone with a vehicle older than 2005, I do believe. So, or say, well, if you drive a diesel older than 3 years or something like that. So, if you got, most people should be fine. It's not as bad as another one nearby, which is Bath, which is basically banned vans and anything larger than a family car, effectively, unless you pay quite a lot of money. I think lorries got to pay £100 for access, or something like loony, or they will be. They're going to ban them altogether. And then parking charges again. So if you're in an area where your parking charges daily amount to quite a lot, you might want to change that. But these are going to be used in calculators that you might be adding on at the end of estimating something. Once you know how long the job's going to be, you revisit the calculator and go, right, this is how many days I'm going to be there. This is going to be the parking charges. And then your mileage as well. And something else as well in here, skip permit fees again, based on what your local council how vindictive they are. There are a few items in here you'll see that are priced as £1 or £0 as well. I'm just going to highlight these because we're going to see these in other sections. Now, if something is priced as £1, that usually means that when you are using that in a calculator, you will be looking at it and going, right, let's say, how much is this going to cost, or how much do you want to allow for this? And you just type in the quantity of pounds you want. So you type in 2,000 and it gives you £2,000 of that item. This is straightforward. And the £0 options here are basically if you want to set something as not required or is included in a timber frame, or say in a subcontract, this person's not doing it, you're going to set the brickies as included the subcontract, and you're just using it as a subcontract cost for your bricklayers. You can just set them as included in subcontract, and it gives them a 0 value. Same thing for not required and such. Okay, looks. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go to the subcontractor section. Actually, before I go into that section, any questions about the plant? And I promise you I've tried really hard not to make plant-based jokes. But trust me, they're growing you. So I'm going to go to the subcontract section now, because there's no questions. And as mentioned a very short time ago, we have a lot of prices in here as £1. So when you are doing a subcontract quotation for bricklaying, you will give the quantity of pounds you want for that subcontractor. That's nice and straightforward. There are a few legacy ones like budget price for electrical installation and budget price for plumbing and heating, which basically was a calculator that was basically square meter rate for budgeting. Like it's the put your finger up in the air after giving it a quick lick and seeing which way the wind blows kind of calculator. They remain in there because you can put that together yourself if you really wish. Same again for budget, scaffold, costing, and such. There is for the legacy and older types of usage for the flat roofing, before we added in the current iteration with, say, the accurate prices for GRP, high-end torchon, low-end torchon, single ply and such, EDPM, there was just a square meter rate for flat water allowance, which was based on a basic torchon. So that's still there, so you shouldn't really need to change any of that. It just exists there for usage. Any questions on the subcontractor section? If not, I can move on and go to sundry. So the sundry section, again, it's a section of ones and zeros. It's just the library of items that you may want to put costs in your estimate for that you may require. If you are a developer, you may want to have the land registration fees, your legal fees, your stamp duties, your regulation fees, all included. Because it might not be a quote you're doing for a customer. It could be that you're just producing the project and you want to see the overall project cost once you've included all the fees, say telecom setup costs and such, water setup costs. Which telecom setup costs is going to be an interesting one because I do believe now, even if you've got copper to a premises, if you go for a new internet or any installation like that, they will now go for installing fiber. Because I did speaking to an engineer the other day, and he was giving it 6 years tops for the copper network. So any on an existing copper broadband will be switched over to fiber because it's going to end up getting switched off. So yeah, so anyone that's even switching now and they've got broadband already will have new holes drilled into their walls, which some people find upsetting because they didn't expect it. So it's worth us noting if you're doing any new build houses or renovations of stuff, you think you've got access already, nope, they're going to have to dig a whole new stuff. And then say things like water connection fees and such. So are there any questions of the sundry section or the price book, like say the master price book in general? Because we're coming to the end of that section, we've still got to look through, say, favorite merchants and such as well. But before we move on to that, is there any questions? No, that's good then. So what we're going to do is have a look at favorite merchants. So over on the left here, you should see favorite merchants. If you're looking at the library, you'll see it's on the buttons as well. Site built timber frame, is that what do you mean by the specification or the calculators? Because we'll be looking at the specifications next on Thursday. I do believe it's the specification session, and then the calculators will be next Tuesday when we have as we go through that. So it's going to be the next two sessions. That's going to be we can have that. So if you save that question for that, I can have a little quick poke in there, but basically that's going to be Thursday's content. Yeah, we've got those specifications to have a little gander through. I'm going to go to favorite merchants, and it's basically a picker sheet. Now I can do default in one go and go to a different merchant. I don't actually have another merchant that has all the different materials because I've not linked myself up to anything. But here you can go, okay, I'm going to set everything to merchant A that is linked in. In general, say that would be something like say Travis, and just goes links in. And if you've got the account set up, and what it'll do when you click Save Preferences, it will change the specifications, which we're going to be looking at next week again, to replace any instance of a HPXL price tracker material with the merchant's material if it's linked in and we've got a price for it. So it swap block for our block for their block, and it'll change any information like usage factor from it. So as an example, a TP block is priced per block, so it changed the spec from using a per meter square rate to using a per block rate, and do that sort of thing for you. If you don't want to have it done globally, you might want to be just using the merchant for, say, timbers, blocks and such, and you don't want to have it affecting anything like plumbing or decorating. You can tell it to do that on a individual type basis instead. So you can say you want all your aggregates from so-and-so, and if you create the merchants and as part of your software, you can then start picking them out. Now, if you've created your own materials for certain items, we do actually have the ability to do a custom item on this. So if I change my aggregates to custom on my favorites, the edit button becomes visible. Now, this is one of the more advanced things in the software, which kind of got used to how everything works and such. But what that lets me do is it brings me up a custom screen. I can see I've got ballast bolt bag in there. And what it does with this is if I click change, I can come in here. I can, again, as I said earlier on, if there's a chance to change a resource, it gives you the chance to create a resource. So I can create a ballast bolt bag, full of beans. If I do that now, full of beans. There we go. Put that in there. Select that one, and what it's going to do is it's going to change every. As soon as I click OK and I click Save Preferences, it's going to change every instance of that ballast bulk bag to be ballast bulk bag full of beans. So you don't have to change every resource in the software to something in a specification. You just got to say, I want to change this resource for this one. Most common thing when people do that is they change the paint from Magnolia to something else. It's quite a common one. With that as well, if you're changing something into a different size, you need to kind of give a conversion for it as well. So if that ballast bulk bag full of beans, I do believe if it's like half the size, you need to do a conversion rate of 2. At the moment, it's just 1 for 1. Like say if it's half the size and you need 2 of them, then it's going to cost 38, say £68.30 to do the same area. Okay, so you can see if you're going up in price or down in price. Now, if I click OK, click Save. Do I want to save that to my library of specifications? Heavens forbid I forget this, because it'd be really embarrassing. I'll have a quick look in a timber frame spec, just so you can see that if I got anywhere that's a ballast bulk bag full of beans. Let's use the find tool. Search for beans. Now sometimes, I've got nothing that uses that item in there. Okay. So one of the reasons it might seem silly to use a anything like full of beans, it just makes it easier to track items down. But to kind of give you a preview of when we look at specs next week, the biggest difference between a timber frame spec and a normal spec is that a timber frame spec has most of the items set as including timber frame. All the internal leaf stuff's just gone. Site fab will cost for the building of a roof and cost for timber floors, whereas the standard timber frame considers it a whole kit and will set all the floors and roof as included in timber frame as well, because the whole house is coming as a kit. So most people use site fab as they say if they've got to put the timber together themselves. The timber frame spec also does for SIPs. I go back to my favorite merchants and just make sure I set that back to price tracker and save those preferences to save myself any future embarrassment. Final note on this section as well is that if you've got more than one merchant linked in, there is order of merchants. So if it can't find a item from merchant A that you've set everything to, it will look to merchant B for equivalent. If it's merchant B's got it, it'll use merchant B's. If merchant B hasn't got it, it'll go to merchant C. And if none of them have got it, it will default back to the price tracker, because price tracker will have a resource for everything that it has a calculator for. Which brings me to my final warning, because always a good to know warning. It actually shouldn't let you anyway. Delete HPixel resources. It shouldn't let you anyway, but if you delete them, the software just go, can't find it. Can't give you a cost because I don't know. Which means we'll probably have to call support and we'll just fix it for you. That's what we do. So that is the end of module 1. Oh, in the specifications, I'll be covering it Thursday, but it was traditionally anything that was highlighted red was considered a key resource. You can switch them on and off, but it was basically, if it's in red, you might want to have a look at it before anything else, because it's probably going to have the biggest impact on your price for the specification. It's mainly become a lot of legacy because we've got so many ways of handling spec stuff now with the mini specs, which we go into, to just kind of swap wholesale roof items or floor items out wholesale. It's mainly meaningless. The main advantage of it just gives you a nice visual indicator, a nice break for the eye, because sometimes you're looking at these things and there is so much information. If you're scrolling, it's hard to see where you are sometimes, so it gives a nice little indication to where you are. But yeah, that's what I use it for anyway, because for the most part, it'll tell you that, your bricks and your blocks and your sand is going to make a bigger difference to your job than, say, your electrical sockets, but still. Okay, do we have any other questions for module 1? I shall give everyone a moment. I'm going to take another sip of water from my water bottle. It's the closest I get to exercise these days, because it's the one for my mountain bike. Okay, so, well, I think hopefully everyone is happy there. Like I say, if you're satisfied, like I say, you're looking forward to next week. Oh, sorry, Thursday. We're doing these twice a week at the moment, because there is quite a lot of like say interest. People want to get using the software. So again, thank you for signing up and thank you for attending. It's a brilliant attendance today. And yeah, I'm going to give a couple more minutes before I end the session for any questions. I say, if not, you hold your silence until Thursday. You can call in on the support line. That's 0117 916 7899 if you think of a question afterwards. It's like any good argument. You always think of the best retort in the shower the day after. So if you think of anything, call us before 5 or drop an email to support@hpixel.co.uk. You go into our ticket system where wonderful text will reply back to you with an answer in good time. The recording for this one, hopefully soon. Hope at best next couple of days. If not, it should be once all the sessions are concluded for this January roundabout. There are ones currently on the internet from my colleague Olivia, who done this session previously. She may be a bit more professional in her delivery, far less jokes. She's professionally trained in delivering this kind of content, whereas I am a roofer with a computer and too much spare time. Hopefully, I've given everyone here enough information to ponder over and make us start with. The value of the price book and making sure that's all accurate information, because at the end of the day, the software can only be as good as the information given to it. So if it's good in, it's good out. If you're giving it poor information, or if it's got poor information to work with, same with dimensions and such, is going to be poor information coming out. It's a computer program. It's very literal in that sense. Okay, so what I shall do then to wrap this up, I'm going to bid everyone adieu. I shall speak to you all Thursday, if not before then, on support. Again, you're all welcome to call in, ask any questions if you've got anything, if anything's pondering or your head scratching. And yes, have a good day, everyone. Okay, thank you and goodbye.